Imagine you are the coach of Switzerland. You just landed in North America for the World Cup. You open the draw, and there it is, Qatar, a team that just 4 years earlier became the first host nation in World Cup history to be eliminated in the group stage without a single win. You smile. You relax. You think you got lucky. You have no idea what is about to happen to you. Let's go back to where this story actually starts. Because the version of Qatar that arrives at the 2026 World Cup is not the Qatar the world laughed at in 2022. And understanding that difference, that gap between who they were and who they became, is the only way to understand why Switzerland never saw it coming. After the humiliation of 2022, Qatar didn't rebuild. They reinvented. The Qatar Football Association didn't just hire a new coach. They launched a project. They called it 2026 or Nothing. And they meant it. Young Qatari players were sent to European academies, not on loan, permanently embedded, living in Spain and Belgium and Portugal, training under the same systems that produced Champions League footballers. Meanwhile, the national team quietly began calling up dual nationality players with Qatari heritage. Technical, fast, European in their thinking, Qatari in their hunger to prove something. Nobody paid attention. Nobody was watching Qatar. That was their first advantage. Now here's where the alternate reality kicks in. And it kicks in hard. In our timeline, the 2026 World Cup draw placed Qatar in a manageable group. But what if the draw, that random, chaotic lottery of destiny, placed Qatar in Group E alongside Switzerland, Serbia, and Cameroon? On paper, Switzerland are favorites. They always are. Organized, clinical, experienced. Players like Granit Xhaka still marshalling the midfield. Briel Embolo sharp as ever. Switzerland had qualified comfortably, finished second in UEFA Nations League, and arrived in America with genuine last 16 confidence. Qatar, meanwhile, had been handed what every media outlet called the easiest group slot they could have asked for. One pundit actually said, and I'm paraphrasing here, Qatar getting Switzerland is like a student getting an open book exam. He would eat those words later. Every single one of them. The group stage opens. Switzerland versus Qatar. Day 6 of the tournament. Kansas City. 63,000 fans in the stadium. The vast majority of them backing Europe, backing order, backing the expected result. But something is wrong from the first whistle. Switzerland can't find their press. Qatar aren't sitting deep like most people expected. They're pressing back, aggressively. Their two attacking midfielders, players most Swiss fans have never even heard of, are closing down every ball like their lives depend on it. Qatar's winger, a 22-year-old who spent 3 years at Sporting Lisbon, burns past the Swiss right back twice in the first 15 minutes. Switzerland are rattled, but nobody says it yet. Because this is Qatar, it's fine. Then minute 23 happens. A Swiss defensive error, a misplaced pass under pressure, gives Qatar a counter. 3 touches, 1 through ball. Their striker, calm as ice, finishes low to the keeper's right. Qatar 1, Switzerland 0. The stadium goes quiet. Not the silence of boredom, the silence of disbelief. Now, here's what nobody in that stadium understood in that moment. That goal wasn't just a goal. It was the beginning of a psychological war that Switzerland had never been trained to fight. Because Qatar's coaching staff had studied something very specific about Switzerland. Something hidden in the data, buried in the numbers. Switzerland, when they go behind, don't panic immediately. They reorganize, they push. But if the lead holds past the 60-minute mark, the data showed their error rate climbs by 40%. Their composure fractures. They start playing with fear instead of purpose. Qatar's entire game plan was built around that 60-minute threshold. Hold the lead, absorb the pressure, wait for the fracture. Wait for the fracture. Switzerland pushed. Hard. They equalized in the 38th minute through Embolo, a powerful header from a corner. Deserved. Relief floods the Swiss bench. But here's the thing. Qatar wanted that. They wanted Switzerland to believe they'd solve the problem, because they hadn't. Halftime. The tactical adjustment Qatar made in the second half is the kind of thing coaches will study for years. Their manager shifted to a low defensive block. Not desperate, not fearful, but structured. Deliberate. Every time Switzerland built possession, Qatar funneled them wide. And every time the Swiss tried to switch play through the center, Qatar's midfield 3 compressed the space in under 4 seconds. 60 minutes. Still 1-1. The Swiss start pushing higher. Their fullbacks push past the halfway line. And this is where the trap springs. Minute 68. Qatar counter. 3 against 2. A pass so clinical, so precise, you'd swear it was a training drill. The Sporting Lisbon winger receives. Cuts inside. Bends it. Far post. 2-1. Qatar. In the stadium, something extraordinary happens. The neutral fans, Americans, Mexicans, Canadians who are there just for the spectacle, start chanting for Qatar. Spontaneously. Because nobody roots for Goliath when David actually has a plan. Switzerland pressed for an equalizer with everything they have. Ex-Haka starts carrying the ball himself. The pressure is immense. Crosses come in. Corners pile up. Qatar defend with their lives. The final whistle blows. 2-1. Qatar win. And then the real consequences begin. Not just for Switzerland, but for the entire World Cup. Because here's what that result did to the group dynamics. Serbia, watching that game from their hotel, went to bed that night with a very different mindset about their own match against Qatar. The comfortable assumption that Qatar were fodder was gone. Serbia prepare differently, play more cautiously, drop deeper. And in doing so, they take 1 point off Qatar instead of 3. But they also draw against Switzerland, who by now are spiraling. Switzerland enter their final group game needing a win. They get a draw. They finish third. They go home. The defending image of Swiss reliability, Swiss neutrality, Swiss steadiness shattered by Qatar, a nation that had been the tournament's punchline just 4 years earlier. But here's what nobody saw coming next. And this is where the story gets genuinely dangerous for everyone else in the bracket. Qatar advance, and a team that was supposed to be tournament wallpaper is now in the round of 16. And they are not the same team anymore. They are a team that has beaten a major European side. They have tasted something. Something that changes football players in a way no training session ever can. They have tasted belief. In the round of 16, they face Uruguay, a physical, proud South American side that approaches the match the way everyone approached Qatar, with confidence, with assumption. You know where this is going. Qatar win on penalties. 3-3 after extra time, and Qatar's goalkeeper, 24 years old, trained in Portugal, nerves of granite, saves 2 spot kicks in the shootout. The scenes in Doha are indescribable. Schools close. The city stops. And in the Qatar camp, something shifts in the atmosphere. Because the players start looking at each other differently. They start asking a question that would have been unthinkable 2 weeks earlier. How far can we actually go? The quarterfinal. France. The moment Qatar's fairy tale was supposed to end, and it nearly did. France dominate the first half, 2-0. Qatar are being outclassed. This is over. Except that's not what happened. An injury to a key French midfielder midway through the second half changes the shape of the game. France's press weakens. Qatar smell it, 71st minute. Penalty, Qatar score, 2-1. Suddenly France are managing a game instead of winning one. 88th minute. A corner, a scramble. A Qatari head meets the ball. 2-2. The stadium erupts. 90 minutes can't separate them. Extra time can't either. Penalties again. France missed 2. Qatar missed 1. France are out. Let that sit for a moment. Qatar, in the World Cup semifinal. The entire world is watching now. Every narrative about football, about which countries deserve to be here, about heritage, about tradition, is being rewritten in real time. And sitting at the center of it all, quietly, is the memory of that first group stage game, the one against Switzerland, the one nobody thought mattered. Because without that win, Qatar go home. Without that win, the bracket shifts. Without that win, none of this happens. One game, one tactical plan, one 68th minute curling finish from a kid who spent 3 years in Lisbon. That was the moment the World Cup changed. Qatar lose the semi-final. Of course they do, because even alternate histories have limits. They face Argentina, the defending champions, Lautaro Martinez in the form of his life, a team playing with the arrogance of people who've done this before. Argentina win 3-1. Qatar are eliminated, but they walk off that pitch to a standing ovation from 40,000 people who weren't even rooting for them at kickoff. Because what they represent, what they achieved, is something that transcends tactics and formations and expected results. They represent the dangerous idea that preparation can replace pedigree, that a nation dismissed, humiliated, written off, can come back with a plan and make history. And Switzerland? Switzerland go home early, carrying a loss to Qatar that will be debated for years. Coaches resign. The Federation launches a review, and the Swiss press ask a question that doesn't have a comfortable answer. How did we not see this coming? Because the signs were there. The press, the structure, the hunger. All of it was visible if you were willing to look past the scoreboard from 2022. Nobody looked. And that is the most human thing in all of this. Football doesn't care about your reputation. It doesn't care about your history, your ranking, your expectations, or the smile you had when you saw the draw. It only cares about what happens when the whistle blows. Qatar walked into the 2026 World Cup as a footnote. They left as a reckoning. And somewhere in Zurich, watching replays of a 68th-minute goal from a winger nobody had ever heard of, Switzerland finally understood what the rest of the world had already started to learn. In football, the teams that aren't supposed to hurt you are always the most dangerous ones.